Welcome to Crunching Tackles, where we break down the hardest hitting social issues in sports. On today's show, we preview the Premier League, check in on the Kawhi Leonard investigation, and talk Spider-Man Brand New Day. My name is Chad Wiley, and with me, as always, is John Nekrasov. And John, on this podcast, which one of us is Spider-Man and which one of us is the guy in the chair?
This is a difficult question. I'm assuming we're referring to the guy in the chair at the end of the film.
He's been the guy in the chair since Homecoming, right?
Wait, which guy? I'm so sorry. Which guy in the chair?
Ned.
Is he in the chair?
He calls himself the guy in the chair.
This has completely passed me by. I feel like I've just been. I think this means that you have to be Spider-Man because
obviously
this has completely passed me. I've been so out of the Marvel loop that like literally, I was like, what does that mean?
Remember in No Way Home?
What is going on?
When they're like, they have to go in and he's like, oh yeah, I was Spider-Man's guy in the chair. Like, I planned the whole thing. That's fine. All right.
That was 5 years ago, Chad. That hasn't even entered my consciousness.
My question has been answered already.
I'm definitely not Spider-Man.
I couldn't be more excited to talk about Marvel with you, and I couldn't be more nervous for you to talk about Marvel after what has just transpired.
I mean, when was the last time we talked about Marvel on the show? Like
been a long time.
OG ones will remember that we used to do like a Marvel corner every episode.
Yeah,
at one point at the beginning of the show.
That's because
that time has passed.
That's because an interesting Marvel television episode was being dropped every single week of our lives for a while.
Right.
And they were actually like pretty good.
Yeah.
But we're back.
We are back. And I'm excited to talk about it because we're obviously both in very different time of our lives. Marvel is in a different time of its life, many would say. But Spider-Man was interesting. And I ultimately, I'm not going to spoil my opinion, but we'll get to it.
So stay tuned. Before that, Joe the John, we do want to talk a little bit about some other news because this will be our last podcast before the Premier League season begins. And obviously that's something that you and I both follow pretty closely. The season actually starts this Saturday. And last Sunday, your team won a friendly match against Manchester City. And
a trophy, excuse me.
A friendly with hardware?
Pep Guardiola claims it among his trophies every time he's asked about it. And if Pep Guardiola claims it as a trophy, so do I.
A glorified friendly against Manchester City.
With trophy. Sure.
No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just trolling. You won the Community Shield.
We did.
In very comprehensive fashion. And many people, as I've read, are kind of like, oh yeah, title race is already over. Like Arsenal are going to win by 9 points minimum. There seems to be this kind of like consensus Arsenal opinion. You obviously approach Arsenal up until last May with fear and trepidation and almost never with confidence.
Of course.
And so I guess my question is, are you buying into the hype or have the vibes remained unchanged for you?
Well, yeah, I think to answer that question, we have to look at the league as a whole, which I think is very fair to kind of take in who are the challengers. Because last year there was one challenger, and it was a very stressful end of the season by far. But Manchester City under Pep Guardiola in his last season was the challenger. Guardiola has now left. Enzo Maresca, who left Chelsea in January, I believe, has come in, and Maresca's City yesterday did not look at the races. As of today, Tuesday, Rodri has officially moved on to Barcelona. Bernardo Silva left earlier in the transfer window. Some big players who have had core leadership roles in that dressing room have left along with Guardiola. And, Arsenal won 3-0 on Saturday. They scored within a minute. And then really never looked threatened at all. And the City that I saw lacked confidence in a lot of areas. It lacked cutting edge. It lacked defensive discipline. And so when we look at City as the first contender, I think that Maresca has his work cut out for him. He will need to completely retool the midfield to make that system work, even though they still have good attackers. Liverpool has a new manager in Anthony Areola, who came in from Bournemouth over the summer. Liverpool, I think, has a good squad, but it's definitely not the squad that Klopp left behind for Arne Slot when they won the league. Tottenham spending tons of money, but none of us believe in Tottenham, obviously. Chelsea has Xabi Alonso, and he's a good manager, but also it's his first year. They have a weird squad. They have potential ownership question marks, which we can get to in a little bit. Manchester United, of course, has a manager who came in, halfway through the season and kind of turned things around for the club and brought you guys up into the Champions League. And I do want you to talk about kind of how you feel about United. But I look at that squad and I think that there are big holes that need to be filled that are not being filled. And so then when I turn my focus back to Arsenal, to answer your question, I'm not like 100% sure that we're going to win the league again. But given that we just won the league and given the state the rest of the teams are at, if I was a neutral betting man, I probably would still bet on Arsenal to start the year. And that's just about where I'm at.
I think you'd have to bet on Arsenal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense, right? I think that is based on the fact that everything that they did last year and they didn't get worse.
Right.
Have they improved, I think, is an actual question mark. But with all the other clubs in a position of uncertainty, maybe staying exactly the same is actually good enough. If nobody else has shown a measure of improvement, which may well end up being the case. I do want to mention the Chelsea thing as a brief aside, if we could.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a billionaire offloading as many assets as Mark Walter is right now?
It is crazy. So what exactly is? So I wanted to talk about this. Is he part of the minority share that Bowley is connected to?
Yes, Mark Walter.
I was not aware
shares
of this structure.
Yeah, Mark Walter and Todd Bowley would be selling their shares of Chelsea together. This is days after Mark Walter sold his entire ownership of the Lakers. And I mean, he is like panicking to like sell assets because he's under serious financial investigation. As of right now, like he still owns the Dodgers, but I wouldn't put it above, like the Dodgers might go for sale soon because
which would be insane.
He's like panicking because he's facing potentially up to a $20 billion fine by the federal government for fraud.
That would not be a small fine.
No, it would not. So the Lakers are obviously been offloaded. He's trying, like we said, to offload Chelsea alongside Todd Bowley. And it's crazy. It's really, really insane. I've never seen a billionaire panic sell at this speed before.
It's a really weird situation. So I honestly just didn't even know how the Chelsea ownership was structured. So currently, 60% of the club is owned by private equity firm Clear Lake Capital. Todd Bowley, who I was wrongly under the impression was actually like the owner of the club, is the chair of the club and has like a 13% stake. I guess Walter also does. And Bowley is basically like by virtue of being the head of that large minority group, is the chair of the club and is kind of setting the direction. But it seems like he's interested in kind of leading their consortium selling out to that private equity firm. Simultaneously, 1892 Holdings, which involves Jeff Bezos, bought a minority share in Liverpool recently. And they basically have a deal involved that if FSG, the owner group of Liverpool, decides to sell, that Bezos-connected group would then become the majority owner of Liverpool. So there is a big, there's some serious money moving around, American money specifically, in the soccer world right now, which is interesting. Like, I don't know. We've talked a lot about state-owned power from the Arab oil money side for a long time now. But it does seem that as some of those states like Saudi Arabia become less interested in splashing the cash constantly, it seems like there could be a gap that American private equity is increasingly interested in turning each of these ventures, whether it be the entire World Cup or clubs, as we talked about last time, um, into basically money making ventures, which
Right.
I think that would be a big change.
And obviously, not every professional sports owner has the same level of involvement in the day-to-day decision making of those teams.
Right.
So who's to say how much Mark Walter was involved in the decision making at Chelsea, or how much Jeff Bezos will be at Liverpool? But it is interesting, and it is happening quickly. And like we saw with the Lakers, these teams are these franchises are appreciating in value so
Right.
fast. Like the inflation of sports franchises are so high that it does make sense why these guys who have been in these leagues for a long time, who are sitting on, a 6 or 7 times that what they paid sellout, are
Right.
considering selling out.
Yeah. Things are changing, and we'll get to the Clippers in a little bit here, but
I'd love
there's
to.
all kinds of interesting things going on in the sports ownership world, which feels, I don't know, it feels like a tectonic shift right now. For some reason, I feel like it's not. Usually it's like a team by team and club by club situation, but there are dominoes falling, it feels like, around the sports world, which is fascinating. I do want to talk to you about, talking back to the league for a second.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling about Manchester United as we enter a new year? New year, new you.
Um,
New Michael
yeah,
Carrick.
new year, new me, right? I feel as if we have improved.
Okay.
I do believe that. And I do believe that the other clubs being in a state of flux presents a real vacuum at the number 2 position in the league. I do not believe that Manchester United will win the title this year. I think that a realistic positive finish would be a strong second place finish. I think that there are still 2 positions of weakness we need to address, which is left back and center back. I think that, like, everyone at the World Cup who follows the USA saw how impactful Yuri Tielemans is as a midfielder. He is going to not only make the team better, but also free up Bruno Fernandes to be even more of an attacking player. And he already broke the assist record last year. So, like, I think he might unlock an even better version of Bruno Fernandes. Marcus Rashford's coming back after his loan from Barcelona, it seems like. He is one of the best attacking players in the world. I still believe that. He should have played more for England at the World Cup. And ultimately, I do feel good about Manchester United's position in the state of the league as a whole. I think we are probably still a year away from really competing with Arsenal for the title. However, I think that, like you mentioned, like, based on from the beginning of the season last year to this year, Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Tottenham all have different managers.
Right.
That is a significant shakeup in the league. Then I think it's going to cause just a little bit more chaos, a little bit more uncertainty, and, like I said, creates an opportunity for Manchester United to take another jump in the Michael Carrick era.
Yeah, at this point, Arteta is the longest serving manager in the Premier League that is currently in position, which is kind of wild.
That's crazy.
He hasn't been there that long, right?
No.
I don't know. I find it interesting. I find United interesting. I think it's a squad. Again, they finished third last year, so they weren't that far off the pace. But we did see it was a year where Liverpool and Chelsea were both way off the pace. Aston Villa was kind of in the running. Aston Villa finished fourth. Spurs were obviously way off it and almost got relegated. Like, it's going to be an interesting year on many fronts. I think that to me, the biggest question mark about United specifically, I think it's not a perfect roster, but it's not a bad roster by any means. The question to me is, come the business end of the season, if United stays in competitions, they can be in 4 competitions. Is the squad there to keep up? Michael Carrick had an incredible end to the year, only in the Premier League. The players had 2 weeks to rest at times, which, is always going to do wonders for you. So is the depth there? I don't know. I think that's the question that I'm looking at. But I think the foundation for a good season is starting to grow there for you for the first time in a while, which is exciting. It's good for the pod.
I believe in Michael Carrick.
And it's good for you.
Yeah. Let's not beat around the bush. Top 4. Go.
I'm going Arsenal wins. I'm going to go Arsenal, Chelsea, City, Liverpool, United is my top 5.
Top 5. Okay. I'm just going to do 4.
Okay.
Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, Bournemouth.
Bournemouth, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Bournemouth are in an interesting position where they kind of upgraded coaches, in my opinion.
Remind me who went there?
Marco Rosa from previously at Dortmund.
Right, yeah.
And of course,
yeah.
Iraola got a better job as the Liverpool manager, and that I think is a significant jump for him. But I think that Marco Rosa is an excellent top tier manager. And the board, compared to some of the other teams, like especially compared to like Villa, I don't think Bournemouth have been ransacked of their players as much, certainly as Villa have been. And so I think Villa are in a position to like drop much more. But I think Bournemouth with a new manager and a relatively similar squad, I think have a chance to jump a little bit. I guess like the other part of my prediction is that I expect Manchester City to plummet this year. I do not believe in Enzo Maresca.
Will he survive the year? There's your question.
I mean, would they fire him at 5th place on Christmas? Like, would that be considered so disappointing that they would sack him? I don't know. Like
5th place, I don't think so. 8th place, that's maybe.
I think they'll be around 5-6 around. Like, I think they'll be around 5-6 the whole season. Not bad enough to sack him year 1, but certainly I don't think they're going to be legitimate contenders. And I do think he would go into the next season under a significant amount of pressure. I don't think City are ever going to be in like the double digits of the table.
I agree. There's
but
good players.
I don't think they're going to be in the top 4.
It'll be interesting. I mean, this is the first, super club that has won a lot since Alex Ferguson left United in 2013. This is the first super club that is having a changing of the guard in a significant way. When Arsene Wenger left Arsenal, at that point, it was not a winning team. It had not done much in quite a while. But United certainly had when Ferguson left, and that was a real struggle. And, I think the after effects of that are still happening to this day. Manchester City is a different organization with all kinds of financial question marks, that continue to circle around them. But Pep is going to leave huge shoes to fill. And I don't know that I wasn't particularly convinced by Maresca's work at Chelsea. This is a better squad than he had at Chelsea, but I don't know. I think if they bring in Enzo Fernandez to be the Rodri replacement, I expect this team to be terrible. That's my prediction now.
That would be an awful decision. Would Chelsea be better off if they had just kept back in the Premier League manager Frank Lampard this whole time, who won the championship last year at Coventry and is now back in the Premier League?
They probably would be better off than they have been in a long time. Yeah. Though Xabi Alonso is someone I am, in terms of like non-Arsenal related things, Xabi Alonso in the Premier League is one of the things I'm most excited about, even though I despise Chelsea with every fiber of my being. I think that he's going to be a really unique character to add to the league, and I'm sure that's why he's come back. He played for Liverpool for a long time, and I don't know. I'm excited to see what he does as an observer with the Chelsea roster, because I think the Chelsea roster makes no sense. And if he can do something with it, then I think that's a real coaching accomplishment. And he should not have been fired from Real Madrid, which leads me to my other point, which is this is not Premier League, but Jose Mourinho at Real Madrid is going to be the story of the year.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for that. That's going to be
It's going to be amazing.
Anytime that he's coaching a big team, it's always box office, and you got to get your popcorn
Which hasn't
ready.
happened in ages.
It's been a long time. Yeah.
A long time.
I guess the last big job was Tottenham.
And that is a dubious.
Right. Right.
a dubious claim. I
It
mean,
was a dramatic.
United.
It was a dramatic time at Tottenham, and that was enjoyable. But yeah,
Right.
United before that. John, really briefly, we want to bookmark a story that we're going to come back to,
We will.
and that is the ongoing investigation that the NBA claims that they are investigating, and Pablo Torre is actually investigating, which is, of course, the salary cap circumvention by Steve Ballmer and the Los Angeles Clippers, allegedly funneling money to their superstar Kawhi Leonard. The NBA, who allegedly are investigating this story, claim a report came out from ESPN saying that the NBA believes that it has no evidence of cap circumvention. Then the NBA almost immediately released a statement saying that that report was by ESPN was inaccurate. And so obviously more is going to come soon. I find if the ESPN story is true, that is a complete joke by the NBA,
Yep.
but I don't believe it's true.
I mean, holding my legal cards closely, think that the NBA has found evidence. The question is, will the evidence come out? And that's always the question, because Pablo Torre certainly has found evidence.
Right. The
of
NBA,
financial misdeeds.
The NBA could say that the evidence they found is circumstantial and does not prove that anything happened. But Pablo Torre has definitively proven at least two facts. Fact number one that is proven is that Kawhi Leonard received an extremely lucrative endorsement for which he did no work.
Right.
That's a fact. Fact number two.
Multiple endorsements.
Fact number two is that the owners of the Clippers invested money into the company that endorsed Kawhi Leonard, and the money they invested was roughly comparable to the money that Kawhi Leonard received, down to a couple million. That is a fact. That's just a verifiable, provable fact. The NBA could argue that that is circumstantial evidence, but it is evidence. The evidence is in the open public record.
Right.
Denying that is like denying a basic reality, and they can't. I don't see how they could get away with doing that.
I mean, I think it just ultimately, it's yet again one of those situations, much like Manchester City, where you have an actor that certainly seems, by all metrics of clear and obvious fact in the public eye, seems to have done a misdeed, and it is against the league's financial interests to punish that actor for the fact that everyone can see. And so it is easiest for them to let the bad actor or alleged bad actor skate by and act like nothing happened. Because ultimately, I firmly believe that if the NBA worked hard enough, they would find evidence. And to me, if the investigation has not turned up factual evidence, it's because they didn't look hard enough. That's basically where I stand.
One paralegal could watch 14 podcasts that are free to watch on YouTube and would find evidence. Pablo Torre has put evidence, real, factual, verified evidence in the public record for free. It's just there. The question is, will the NBA find more evidence? But Pablo Torre, without seeing a single piece of secret information that the NBA has that Pablo Torre doesn't have, Pablo Torre has already done a pretty good job of proving the case, just out in the open, independently.
And I agree. And I think at least the way I understand evidence and circumstantial evidence is the NBA just needs to find evidence that there was an active secret agreement somehow in communication form. Maybe they've done a really good job of purging everything, but that seems unlikely to me. If so, if they have purged everything, then that's, a whole nother story. But it seems to me, I guess on the one hand, it's not like there's a subpoena involved where the government is actually hey, give us this information. But nevertheless, I think that if discovery was done fully, evidence would be brought to light. But the problem is that the NBA is not incentivized to investigate itself fully. And that's why we land where we are.
That's true. My Joe reminded me, my friend Joe, we were texting about this, and he reminded me that the standard in the NBA bylaws is like no reasonable explanation for something. Is so it's a pretty low standard. And on its own, there is no reasonable explanation presented by the Clippers, by Aspiration, or by Kawhi Leonard for why he received a multi-million-dollar endorsement for which he did zero work. Zero.
And there are multiple side deals, as Pablo has reported many times.
Yeah. I can't wait for Pablo's next episode, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it. Separately, but this reminded me, do you think that this will finally be the year that we do get the city ruling?
No,
I was thinking about it. Like, what if City are 8th and around Christmas, and the Premier League are like, well, like this wouldn't be the worst. They're not going to win the title. This might be the year to just hand down a 15-point something, like just to like, it's not going to matter. It'll be enough points that they don't get relegated, but they're not going to win the league. Let's just get it over with this year. Is that possible?
I don't know that I believe anything's ever going to happen.
They'll just be in limbo forever.
And I think it's a complete dereliction of justice. Yeah. It is a disgrace.
Yeah.
The way the Premier League has handled this is completely non-transparent, while handing down plenty of charges to smaller clubs that have done less things. They were not provably bad, or at least, not as egregious of offenses. City was actually punished by UEFA for their financial misdeeds.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years. And yet here we are, nothing happening.
Here we are. So that's a little bit of a sports roundup. On our next podcast, which will come out in a few days, we're going to do a deep dive into a couple issues related to transgender participation in sports and kind of the larger cultural movement and policy around transgender issues. We're going to be talking about a Supreme Court case that was determined during the summer that we missed during the World Cup, and also some of the recent drama, just I don't know what the better word to use, but just drama at the WNBA. But before we end this podcast, and that next one will be coming out in a few days, we do want to take a moment to do something that we haven't done as much in the last year or two than we did previously, but celebrate cinema, because this is shaping up to be another good year at the movies. Certainly from the box office, one of the best years in recent memory since 2019. And the box office champion is Spider-Man Brand New Day. And Spider-Man movies, unlike really any other superhero movie, are a mass mainstream theater going experience. And for the most part, Spider-Man movies are almost always good. And this one's no exception. Brand New Day is an awesome movie, John.
Yeah, I had a great time. And as we talked about at the top of this show, I have been completely tuned out of Marvel for at least 5 years. I have not seen a Marvel movie in theaters, unless we count Across the Spider-Verse, since Spider-Man No Way Home.
Wow.
Sorry, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I lied.
Okay.
I did see that. So okay. It's been 3 years.
But you haven't seen Fantastic Four, Thunderbolts, Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
Definitely not Quantumania.
The Marvels.
Nope.
Eternals.
Wasn't Eternals in 2020?
Was it? I don't know. Maybe.
That movie's
time is not real to
me
me anymore.
No, it's not real. Be that as it may, no, I've not.
Okay.
I've seen since No Way Home came out, I have seen Across the Spider-Verse, and I've seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Okay.
And those were both 3 years ago. So this is the first time I've even seen a superhero film in theaters since 2023. So this was a big time for me. And I will be honest, I had a great time.
Yeah.
Brand New Day is a good movie.
Yeah. I think, we could talk a little bit about, I do want to talk about Tom Holland, who is obviously having just the box office of the summer, starring in both The Odyssey and in Spider-Man. I think obviously Tom Holland was created to be Spider-Man. He is in many ways the perfect Spider-Man. It is the role and the actor just perfectly meeting each other in a very unique way. But I think what I want to talk about specifically is that Spider-Man is kind of a cheat code for Marvel in the sense that it is somewhat correlated to what the larger project of the MCU, but
Right.
also completely stands alone at its own achievement and is such a popular character that people with very limited understanding of Marvel Comics are still interested enough in Spider-Man to go see him. Like, and there are components of the story, particularly regarding the villain, that are complicated or that introduce and move the future of Marvel forward. But even if you have no idea who that villain character is, and I don't think you did going into it, like when you saw the movie, that doesn't
No.
really detract from the experience of watching it because Spider-Man stands on his own feet. He doesn't need to be boosted by decades of storytelling and cameos, and even though those things are in this movie, he's not dependent on cameos and world building in this multi-movie cinematic universe in order to be interesting and relevant and compelling to people. And there's no other Marvel product that's like that. The only other character who can consistently make individual standalone movies that are always going to be successful is Batman.
Yep.
Those are the
I
only
was
two
thinking the same thing.
characters that do that. And um I think that like there's like two of the eight highest grossing movies of all time are individual Spider-Man movies. And that's cool. And I think that it goes back to the foundation that Sam Raimi made, maybe making this character an interesting mainstream character. Andrew Garfield carried the mantle. Those movies weren't great, but he was a very charming and likable Spider-Man. And Tom Holland has taken the mantle and run with it and been excellent. And yeah, yeah, I mean, completely. Like, I almost feel like this movie does not change my opinion of the future MCU at all, but it does enhance my opinion of Spider-Man.
Yeah. I mean, I think I felt the exact same way. I Not to spoil my thoughts on the future, uh, before we reach the future, but like I'm really not interested in Doomsday, even after seeing this movie. Like maybe I'll see it at some point, but I am not like, whoa, I'm back in the Marvel universe. But I am always in on Spider-Man. And I think the majority of people are going to be that way. I think this movie will outperform Doomsday significantly, actually. Um, and I think it is because what this movie gets right is the I hesitate to say old school because the MCU, like phases 1 through 3, is not that far ago, you know?
Yeah.
But they had a formula that worked back in the day. Like some of the movies sucked, obviously, as with any franchise. But the ones that worked because they had compelling, fun characters who were just good actors who were on screen having a good time. Um, they had fun action and they brought people together in combinations that you wouldn't expect. And like that's the definition of comic book fun, basically, is just a lighthearted time with a heartfelt soul. Um, every really genuinely good MCU movie has that in it. Even something like Winter Soldier, which I think is like the best of the bunch still. Um, Winter Soldier has comedy in it. It has heart in it. It has good characters coming together in dramatic ways. Um, it both doesn't take itself too seriously. Like a good Marvel movie doesn't take itself too seriously, but also isn't pure comedy most of the time, with the exception of like Ant-Man. And I think Brand New Day kind of just tries to get us back to that and just tells a genuine story about Spider-Man being a person. And I don't know, I think that worked for me. Like I think I'm inherently interested in the idea of modern day mythology, which is what superhero movies are. And they don't need to be taken super seriously, but they do need to tell us something about ourselves, or this just slop. And most of what Marvel has been doing has been world building slop for the last decade. I mean, not decade, but like 7 years. Um, and I think this one actually, it had a viewpoint. It tried to tell a story. It was fun. And John Bernthal and Zendaya and Tom Holland all really work together. And that, like, it's that simple.
Yeah, I feel like everything you say, I agree with. Fun, good action, good heart, good jokes, all that's true. To me, like when I was in the theater, I was very immersed in the movie. When I left the theater, the thought that kept coming to my head was like, this is a movie that is completely unburdened from the pressure of moving a cinematic universe forward. And there are so
And it
many
still moves.
times,
It
and
still does, though.
it
Yeah.
does, but there are so many movies that I watch in the MCU where you just feel, oh, well, like that scene only exists to set up this future thing that I'll see in 5 years, 8 movies later, or whatever. Like it feels laborious, and like difficult for them to try to show you the puzzle pieces to build the puzzle to whatever the next end game style event they're trying to build to is. And to a certain extent, yes, Spider-Man Brand New Day does do that. Yes, I think Spider-Man will be in Doomsday and then in Secret Wars, but Spider-Man Brand New Day and all of these Spider-Man movies can stand on their own 2 feet and say, like, we're telling a comprehensive story on our own with Spider-Man characters, with Spider-Man themes, and anything that we do as a favor to the MCU. Remember, like, this is not owned by Disney. This is a Sony-owned character who's licensed to the MCU. Anything we do to advance the MCU is just extra, and we
Right.
don't need it. Like, the multiverse of madness does not exist, only exists to further future things. Same with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Same
Right.
with Thunderbolts. Same with all these other movies. Same with Fantastic Four. And Spider-Man is unique right now in that way. And it feels like exciting and like liberating to watch it compared to that other stuff.
Yeah. Can we spoil what happens
Sure.
just for a second?
Well, I mean,
So-
you've said, yeah, we're going to spoil it.
Yeah, spoilers. The villain of the movie isn't actually a villain. It's Jean Grey from the X-Men, it turns out. I didn't know who Jean Grey was. I'd never heard of Jean Grey before until after watching this film.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, who are deep in the Marvel world, I think the fact that they knew who it was it took them out of the story because they're like, oh, this is setting up the future of the franchise. As someone who didn't know who it was, I was like, oh, this is cool villain backstory. And then it's just an interesting character. And I had a good time. So not bothered. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, that's how I feel. I didn't feel like it. Obviously, like I think that this character is going to appear in many MCU movies later, but as an introduction, just like remember, like you have to remember, like Black Panther was introduced for the first time in Winter Soldier or Civil War.
Was it Winter Soldier or Civil War? Yeah, Civil War.
It was Civil War. Like
Yeah.
that was his entry to the MCU. Then later on he had the Black Panther movie. And it
Right.
wasn't like like Civil War was still a movie about 2 other characters, and it wasn't like distracting that Black Panther was introduced that way. I think the same is true with Jean Grey here. Obviously other X-Men will be introduced scattered throughout the universe. Obviously Patrick Stewart already returned in Multiverse of Madness, I think.
Did he? This is news to me.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. And yeah, anyway, that's another matter. But yeah, so yeah, good movie.
Good movie. Sadie Sink's in the MCU. We're having a great time.
Do you have any reaction to the larger MCU or to the larger X-Men cast and or Adam Driver being in the MCU now?
Oh, I was about to say I could not be less interested, but Adam Driver being in the MCU does interest me. But that's
You don't care about Kit Connor from Warfare or any of these guys?
not really.
You don't care about Indy Navarrete from Obsession, the movie sensation of the year?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Adam Driver. I mean, Ryan Gosling's joining the MCU. They're really trying. They are spending cash out of all cylinders right now, and we'll see if it works for them.
I don't know if it will, but they're certainly hiring actors as if they are still like prime 2018, 2017 Marvel. We'll
It's
see if
crazy.
they are. We'll see
And
if
you
they
know,
are.
I support Adam Driver and Ryan Gosling in their middle age, for supporting themselves and their families.
Good for
this
them.
time.
Good for them. Well, I guess that's it for the podcast. We're like we said, going to keep it a little bit shorter, and we are going to go ahead and record and bring to you a couple days later an in-depth discussion on the Supreme Court's ruling on transgender participation in youth and collegiate sports, as well as some drama related to transgender policy and some very trollish behavior going on in the WNBA. And so that's going to be next time. Anything else for the listeners before we depart for now?
No, thank you guys as always for listening, and we've heard some good feedback on the shortened format, so we're excited to continue bringing that to you guys.
Absolutely. And until next time, when we'll talk to you very soon, we hope that you all continue to be well and be safe, and we'll talk to you in a couple days.
All right, cheers, guys.